All right, so I just wanted to really quickly run through a couple of challenges in outdoor education. I was going to write stuff, but honestly, I could have written challenges in outdoor education and I could have gone on for that for ages. So I thought, let's just do a really quick video about it and talk about the challenges because these are challenges that you guys are going to face when you go into the classroom and go into schools as well. So I really wanted to highlight them for you just to first of all let you know that you're not alone if you start seeing these as being challenges, but also that it's something to keep in mind when you are going into classrooms and when you are going into different schools across the state as well. So these are the challenges that kind of sprung to mind for me when I thought about teaching outdoor education. And the first one was time. It's really hard to find time in the school day to take students out on outdoor experiences. And depending on your school's position and understanding about outdoor education, it sometimes is impossible. I know personally of people who every second class they get to go out and do an outdoor experience. Maybe it's because where their school is situated, they have a national park nearby, or they have a creek, or they have an awesome bike track or BMX track. But there are lots of schools and a lot of places that don't have access to these outdoor environments as easily as that. It also depends on what your timing is like in your timetable. Even for me, I have 80-minute lessons, but I find it really challenging to find time to go out to an environment for that 80-minute lessons without impeaching on period, 1 or 4 or lunchtime or whatever it is. And so when I do that, I need to be really strategic about how I plan it. Whenever I do my planning, I always plan it on times that have my class in it, but then also hopefully I'm in a free or I'm in a class that I can easily leave an extra for. One of the things that I was really noticing, so my last couple of years at Mount St. Joseph Girls College, when I was doing like 10 camps in the year, was that I had to be really smart about when I did these camps and how I planned them. So I always tried to do them around my VCE subjects. It wasn't always easy, but I managed to do it for most of the part. And also when there was a majority number of classes that class was there for as well. My students got really used to being out, and I got really good at doing extras, and you just kind of do, it's part of it. And when staff admin or school admin would come up and say, oh, actually, we don't know if we can send you out, I'd be like, well, look at all these times that you've sent me out before and look how organized and professional I have been. My students have never suffered for their learning just because I wasn't in that classroom. I've always been able to produce work for them. So time is a really, really big one. Some schools will ask you to go out on weekends. I personally have a really big issue with that, and that comes up to that last point there in personal time. If you can avoid it, try your hardest not to go out on Saturdays or Sundays. At my old school, Mount St. Joseph Girls College, I never ever went out on a weekend, ever. Because first of all, I wasn't getting paid extra to go out on camps. Some schools will pay you like an allowance overnight. I was never getting that. So I was not taking up my weekends for that. But also I was just really smart about how I went around planning it. There might be excursions or camps that you want to plan that have to take over a weekend. If it's a 5-day hike, well, obviously you're going to have some time on the weekend. But for me, my longest time away was 4 days, so 3 nights. And I really made sure to utilize that time during the school week for it. Same with school holidays. I didn't plan anything during the school holidays. It's up to you and probably your school, but really think about your own personal time as well and how much you're giving up of that too, because you don't want to burn out. And this is a subject where unfortunately it can lead to that too. Planning and paperwork, obviously a massive challenge. Great if you have someone else to help you out, or if you're going to a school where you've had people in the role before you have set up some really great guidelines and some really great management tools to help with that planning and paperwork. If not, you need to think about reaching out to other schools and other networks as well about how they do their paperwork and their planning, because it is challenging, it's time consuming. I was telling you guys before that I have never had so much time in my life now teaching while we've been online, because I haven't been doing any paperwork or any planning for camps and excursions. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my goodness, this is what it feels like to, actually have time to mark during the school day, or actually have time to be able to create new content during the school day, because in the past that's been really challenging for me. Student behavior and student management as well. Like I kind of said in one of my explanations, or later on I kind of will, I've only ever had one major incident on a camp. And that was because I didn't know the students and they didn't know me very well. It was my very first camp. I was fresh out, and looking back, I don't know if there's anything I could have done about it, but I haven't had a situation like that since. And for me, the biggest thing for that is that student relationship and that student respect. I always have a conversation with my students before we go on camp about my expectations, and they're pretty strict expectations as well, I'm sure that some of you have been on camps before where you've been literally sitting up at night going, was that them getting out of the tent? Was that them doing that? And that's an awful way to be able to spend your camp and your experience. So student management and student behavior is really important. Even in the classroom, setting up those expectations really early. Don't let them get away with behavior that you wouldn't be expecting or allowing on camp either. Don't let them get away with things that could put you and them in a situation on a camp where someone gets injured or hurt, or where something serious occurs. So really being really clear on those expectations and laying them down early is really important. Talked about having a vague curriculum already. That's a really big challenge to outdoor, but also kind of awesome because you get to kind of mold it and shape it and create what you want to do and what you think is important for students. Remember, at the center of it is what I want these students to learn, what I want them to get out of this. Why am I teaching them this subject in the first place? So we start with that, and then we start using parts of the curriculum that can help build that up for us. Outdoor education versus theoretical outdoor education. So does your school have a completely separate outdoor education program? If you're teaching outdoor education, do you actually get any classroom time? There'll be a lot of schools that you will start applying for. That's a question to ask. What does the outdoor education program look like? Do you want classroom time with them, or are you just going to be that outdoor education manager and creator? There's nothing wrong with either of those two roles, but it's up to you what you want to be able to be involved with as well. Cost is a really big one. Luckily, a lot of our excursions and things that we can do can be quite cheap. Hiking can be quite cheap, okay? Transport and camping costs are obviously the big ones, as well as equipment. But again, when you can kind of start building up that equipment base, or maybe you have students to hire, I don't know, your different schools have different things, it can make it a lot easier for us to get over that as a challenge to teaching outdoor education. Depending on what your school is like and how much money they have, and if you're asking students to contribute, that's going to change what you ask them to do. Things like going to the snow, super expensive, really, really expensive. Maybe instead of doing a downhill skiing camp, can you change that to a cross-country skiing camp where they might be up there? I do a camp with my year 11s. We go up to Marysville for the night. We stay up there. We go cross-country skiing for the 2 days either side of that. It's relatively cheap, and we also get awesome education about fires and the way that fire impacted and changed the landscape, and how that has had a massive change to the ecosystem as well. So yeah, really thinking about what you can do. Like I said, camping's a big one. Most of my camps are just camping, and maybe having some other element to it, but that can be great as well. The other thing here is being seen as a bludge subject, not just by students, by teachers as well. I can't tell you how many times teachers have come up to me or said things about outdoor education going, oh, well, why are they on camp again? Why are they doing this again? Like, goodness me, they should be studying for their English exam. English teachers seem to have a really big grudge. I don't know why. But that was a really big issue for us when we were trying to get across the importance. So when you're that outdoor education teacher, make sure that at any stage, any time, if there's a school assembly, if there is a chance for you to brag about where you've been and what you've done and what students have got out of their experiences, do that. Every newsletter that goes out, if I've had an outdoor experience, I get my students to write something up about it, not just what they've done, but what they have learned as well. And I get them to really talk about those hard and soft skills, and also knowledge, connecting it to theoretical content too. It's really, really important to be able to move that subject from being seen as I'll just do it because I can't think of anything else to do, or I want to just, get out of doing extended maths or whatever it is, to being a really viable subject to choose. You can get some great study scores in outdoor environmental studies in VCE. It's totally possible. And at the school that I was at, we were really focused on getting, those 50 study scores. And that made a big difference to the people who chose the subject, but also how the subject was being seen as well. Not to say that outdoor education is important because it can get you good scores or good results. It should be more about what students are able to get out of it, what skills, what knowledge, and again, what kind of personal attributes can they take away from those experiences too. So they're just some of the challenges to outdoor education that I thought I'd run by you. I'm sure you've come up with many of them yourself, and there'll be plenty more that you come up with and kind of have to hurdle over your time through teaching as well.